Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Arvato Financial Solutions webinar. I hope everybody of you can hear me, and hopefully you can see even some guys. I will introduce you in a second. If you have any issues, please just use the question and chat function on the right side, and I try to help you to hear and to see anything. Great. So this is our webinar in regards of smart customer scoring for more profitability in the automotive segment. And the question we like to answer, or the question we assume some of you will have, is how do we offer the right subscription to the right customer? This is a big question, and therefore we have this webinar, and we try to give you some insights. Currently, you are all mute, but you can ask questions, and I will take them in account and place it on the right onto the right time that you will get an answer. And yeah, and who will answer your question? I like to introduce Thomas. Thomas Nörding is our risk and fraud expert with special experience in e-commerce and mobility. And welcome, Daniel. Daniel is with Arvato for 15 years already. He's our IT expert, and he's responsible for setup and running of subscription billing and rating systems for telco and mobility. And we have Sören in our round. He's our international responsible for the sharing topic at all, with deep process and collection know-how. And it's me, Gina, from the marketing team. So hello, everybody from us. And now we will start with the insights, and I hand over to Sören.
Thank you, Gina, and welcome everyone. Happy to see that we managed to gather some attention on this midsummer eve. Although I believe it's only here in Sweden that we celebrate this sacred holiday, as would it be the most important holiday of all year. Nevertheless, I would like to frame the setting for you and give you a view on Arvato's total value chain as we see it. And we have three big trends to relate to. We will be, and we all want to be connected. In the future, it will be possible to feature your car momentarily. A lot of horsepower when you drive it yourself, or less horsepower when your 18-year-old son drives it. And this will basically be a cost for it, or a transaction. Cars will be purchased online. People will see the car as means of transportation that will vary depending on the current need. Color or make will be less important, we believe. Convenience, pay for it when needed. These are the trends we relate to, and these bring us into our two wheels that we have on the next slide, which is basically saying that the car industry today is rethinking its financial processes. Small amounts will be withdrawn on a regular and frequent basis, not one large amount on one occasion. We as Arvato have years of experience with high volume and low ticket. Our existing ecosystem handles transaction for e-commerce, telecom, and energy for years. And this makes the fit for us very fortunate. If we follow the left circle, we see the areas parking, fueling, and or charging, followed by car sharing subscription models of different kinds. And these are areas where we already today support in various ways. May it be payments, may it be monthly billing, may it be accounts receivables. Our support could be in parts or in a whole. Often we start with one or two services and then connect areas that make sense when we have proven ourselves. And as the various mobility offers develop, we are sure that we will support in-car delivery, tailored insurance, and connectivity, just to mention a few. Basically, anywhere where decisions on small amounts will be taken instantly. And this will often be connected to an asset worth of tens of thousands of euros. This happens already and will be larger as time goes by. And it will happen in multiple countries, in different languages, in various currencies. Scalability is key, and one European infrastructure will be essential. Consumers shall always have the choice of a local payment method of their choice, a billing cycle of their preference, a package that ensures a smooth and enjoyable consumer journey. Thomas and Daniel will share some insights on how we work and function in detail right now. And one important task when selling something remote is to identify and make sure that the person who orders is who she or he says that he is. And Thomas will enlighten us about this and other topics. Take it away, Thomas.
All right. Thank you very much, Sören. And also from my side, a warm welcome to everyone. And thanks for joining today's webinar. And I would like to start off with the rather general question about why scoring and risk management is relevant in the field of mobility and car subscriptions in the first place. And as Sören has initially already pointed out on his slide, we are currently seeing a strong increase in digitization in the automotive and mobility industries. And that also goes hand in hand, of course, with the shift towards online in terms of the preferred sales channels. So one thing that always comes along with online sales is, of course, the fact that initially also the customers that are entering our store or our website are more or less anonymous to us. We don't know much of them. And obviously this bears with it also a stronger risk because we don't have the same amount of control towards focusing only on those customers that appear to have the biggest potential to us, or from the other side, also the biggest risk. Then, of course, when we are looking into newer mobility offerings such as car sharing and subscription, it's usually the case that we have high value vehicles that we hand out to our customers, but without any major financial security, such as down payments and deposits that are in the background, and which is more or less the regular case in classic car sales. So also this means an elevated risk that we have. Then, as Sören mentioned, the trend goes towards using rather than buying vehicles. So this also brings along another point that contributes to the elevated risks in these business models, because payments are often done only after a service has already been provided and charged then by the actual usage. So this can be minutes driven or by the kilometer. So all of these things that I've just mentioned mean, of course, that providers of those offerings have to consider some major categories of risks. And we see three major categories that are of really important relevance, which are, of course, creditworthiness, then damages, and also fraud. With regards to fraud, I would like to take a short look at some current figures that we got from international e-commerce. Currently, about 1.8% of all online revenues are actually fraud. And this is actually despite the fact that all major online players already have some sort of fraud prevention system in place. On average, they actually use 7.8 different solutions to already get a hold of fraudulent activities. So this underlines very well that fraud is not a static phenomenon, but develops very dynamically over time and increases in frequency. Last year alone, we saw an increase in fraud of more than 50% compared to 2018, and this is more or less also the trend that we could see over the past years always. From a global perspective, with 72%, the vast majority of e-commerce fraud is taking place on payments that are done through credit cards. But this can differ from country to country, of course, always depending on the overall payment preferences. So when there's other payment methods that are more relevant in certain markets, of course, fraud can also happen to a strong extent on other payments. From a cost perspective, each dollar that is lost to a fraudster costs an average another $3. This is mainly due to very costly handling processes, chargeback fees, and the likes that are happening in the background. Of course, also another cost point is then also in the mitigation activities themselves. So you need staff, you need systems, and so on that you need to invest in, which also causes cost. 27% actually of all the costs for fraud mitigations fall on manual order reviews. So really manual processes with having a closer look at transactions. So also this is one field that is definitely worth looking at in order to optimize the overall cost structure. Now, of course, all these numbers I've taken from e-commerce, and the numbers may also differ for mobility providers. But the important thing is there's more cost to it than just the lost product, and also it develops really dynamically, so you always need to be on the lookout. So I hope so far I was able to make the point clear that it's very important to gather information about your customers in order to evaluate whether they are actually able to pay for the service that they want to purchase from you, and of course whether they actually want to pay at all, which would be the case when we're talking about fraud. So now, of course, you may ask the question, how am I supposed to do that? How do I get this information? How can I evaluate this? Well, and as so often, there's not a single answer to this, and there's many ways that lead to Rome. And for sure, the risk management approach always needs to be aligned with the overall business model. However, I've put down some general points that should be considered when setting up your risk management processes. And the first thing to do is definitely taking a closer look at your current processes and customer journeys. So ask the question, where are potential weak spots? Where do you recognize potential scenarios that may open possibilities for increased payment defaults because of bad debts, or even because of fraud? Then try to make your risk assessments, your risk evaluation very early within the user journey. The earlier you have information on the customer potential, the more tools you also have at hand to optimize the further processes and customer journey. Then the evaluation and checks that you do should impair the user experience as little as possible. So that also includes not treating every customer as a potential fraudster. A good alternative here may be to rather focus on identifying the good customers. So the focus should be on also good indicators that point to high potential in a customer. Then, of course, you should always keep track of your fraud, risk and fraud KPIs. Over time, customer behavior can change, and fraudsters may find new ways to exploit your offering. So try to keep track of everything so that you can react and find the right countermeasures really quickly. And then last but not least, constantly balance out your risk management activities and payment default rate. So no matter what you do, you will have some defaulted payments. It's just something that you have to live with, and that is also actually okay because it gives you indications on your performance, what you do within your risk management. You just need to find the right balance to accept the maximum number of customers to drive revenues on the one hand, while keeping your default rate low at an acceptable level on the other. Overall, this will get you the most under the bottom line. Now, how could a risk management setup potentially look like in a car subscription use case? Besides those items that we've already pointed out in the beginning, we have identified two major challenges that come with the car subscription business. The first challenge is that car subscription offers are quite complex. Usually you can pick between different models with different mileage performance and also some customization options as well, maybe. So as a result, the prices vary quite a bit as well. So now if the customer has configured a car that from a risk perspective would exceed actually the assumed financial capabilities within rather classical process, he would probably be rejected because his risk profile would not appear sufficient. The problem is getting this customer to restart the whole configuration all over and choosing a different option is really, really difficult, so that the risk of actually losing this customer along the way is quite big. In order to solve this issue, a risk evaluation really early on in the process can be a great way. So to show you how this can look like in an actual application flow, my colleague Daniel has prepared a small demo for you. So Daniel, please take over from here.
Thank you, Thomas. And to everybody, fantastic to have you here. I will share my screen right now. So now you should see my screen.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we see this fantastic tent.
Oh, it's then of course is the wrong screen. Sorry for that. So now you should see my screen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And as Thomas mentioned, I have the opportunity now to show you everything we talked about and how it looks like in a combined solution. On my screen, you see two windows. On the left, we have created a mock to represent a potential customer touchpoint, this one here. And on the right, we see our very own business support system, or short BSS, which is the heart and soul of our holistic approach to this. The BSS can support a business in many different aspects. But in this demo, I will focus on two of them. One is the product catalog you're seeing right now, and one is the workflow engine, and I will show you how we use them to steer risk evaluation and create customer experiences, which are great. Now, the product catalog consists the foundation of each business, the product itself. And the BSS offers very simple ways to configure even most complex products. I have chosen the Mobility Time L product for an example here. And you can see it offers included usage charges and included setup charges, and it also has like the metadata of a product, and of course you can configure lots and lots of information to the product, even to the picture which is shown in the front end. Of course you can assign different cars to the product, like in our example here, and most important, you can assign the credit classes. For our demo, we created a simple credit class system based on the Olympic medals. And as you can see, the product here is just allows gold customers to use it later on. The credit classes themselves can, of course, be as complex as your business needed. So we can provide like suggestions for about 115 different classes in groups of classes, and they can be used in different combinations, of course. Now, I have prepared a customer, which is Klaus Sommer. It's our demo customer since day one. And I have already logged him into this app. And as you can see, Klaus only can see, as he has a credit class of silver, he only can see products which are available and allowed by the credit class at the moment for him. This therefore he cannot see products which are not allowed to him, and so he's not being disappointed about products he can see but not actually can book. Now let's have a look into Klaus customer data. So let's look in our backend, and here we store all the necessary data regarding the customer. Like the personal data, the contact information, and so on. One data point, of course, is the credit class. As we see here, as I mentioned earlier, Klaus is assigned to the credit class of silver, which is based on the credit assessment took place during his registration. And I will now show you the backbone of the customer account, which is the workflow engine. The workflow engine is something where every step of the customer registration and the whole customer lifecycle takes place. So every customer and his account is assigned to basic workflows here. And this is the customer creation workflow of Klaus. And its content and its order can be tailor-made for the specific needs of every business. And here we do such thing like sending welcome emails, manual check driver licenses or other documents if needed, retrieving payment information from our PayNext system upstream, and most important of all, perform the risk check. And in this risk check, our Klaus Sommer got silver. Now, as we gathered a lot of data during Klaus' lifetime as a customer of ours, we decided to switch this to gold because he was a good customer, always paid his debt and delivered his cars without any damage. And so I will now check the credit class to gold. Save this one. Of course, this process would be total automatic later on, but for demo purposes, this is much more easier to show it that way. And if I now refresh Klaus front end, you see the product range has widened up, and Klaus can now use the whole product range, even the beforehand not available mobility time L product. Yes, and with this positive customer experience, I will backhand over to Thomas again.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. So now with what Daniel has just shown us, we've already shown that we solved the first challenge that we've identified quite nicely by evaluating the customer early on and then actually displaying only those offerings to him that we that the customer is actually eligible for. So if we look at Klaus now, he will probably be at the point where he selects a product and actually wants to start the application process or the purchasing process of this subscription. So this brings us to the point where the second challenge kicks in, because so far we have established that that Klaus is picking an offer that he's also with a really high likelihood able to afford, but we still don't know if Klaus Sommer really is Klaus Sommer, or maybe if it's just somebody who's trying to get a car in the name of Klaus Sommer. Currently, how this is handled is during the application process. There are often rather manual tasks to do that, like sending in identification documents or even proof of income to be really sure that somebody can afford this. Of course, for a provider, this kind of documentation is really helpful to lower the risk of handing out a vehicle to the wrong person. But the processes also cause media breaks and time delays because, of course, the evaluation of them also has to take place on the provider side and requires some manual work. This in turn, of course, has a negative influence on the customer experience, creates cost, and also limits the possibilities to scale because it involves just a lot of manual work. So one way to solve this second challenge can be achieved by actually leveraging on new possibilities and technologies that have been made widely available through last year's PSD2 regulations. And I'm talking here about open banking interfaces through access to account standards that make it possible to carry out these processes in a real-time and fully digital way. So how does it work? The main idea is that the customer can authenticate himself through his online banking account. So within the application process, the customer would be asked to provide his banking information and log into his account, which is secured through strong customer authentication according to PSD2. So we have here a really strong means to actually authenticate our customer and verify him. With the information in the bank account, there are then various things that can be done. So in terms of identity verification, we already have the authentication through the login, but then we can also verify the application data against the data that is contained in the bank account. so that we have here the possibility to actually make a match about on the applicant's basis for identification purposes. But of course, with the information that we get from the customer's bank account, there's also additional things that we can do to double proof also his creditworthiness, or just the fact that he's actually able to afford the monthly fee that we want to charge him. So what we can do is we can categorize automatically account balances. We can calculate his available monthly budget, and also use all of this information that we can gather to create a credit scoring based on his actual account history. Of course, all of this happens in the background while the customer stays on the subscription provider's website without sending the customer away, and the customer is receiving also a direct feedback. So we also can prevent greater time delays in the application process, so that the customer gets direct feedback. So as you can see, with regards to all the two challenges that we have identified, with help of a two-layered risk setup consisting of an early risk evaluation to dynamically adapt the product offering to the customer's risk profile, and with an identity and financial check based on open banking technology, we were able to actually solve these two challenges in a really elegant way. And of course, as a result, both sides actually benefit from this. So obviously the provider, he can realize a higher conversion rate through a risk-based product and payment offering, while at the same time already lower his default rates based on this, because he has the means at hand to actually only offer those products to lower the risk overall with this customer. But also the user benefits from it, because he receives an excellent customer experience by only seeing those products that are actually suitable for him. He won't get into any situation, where he might get rejected, creates bad feelings, might leave the process, and so on. So also for him, it's a really good process. And also we can keep it completely digital and in real time without any unnecessary friction. And yeah, that basically wraps this up. And I'm at the end of my part, and I'd like to hand over to Sören again. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Daniel, for giving us these insights. I just wanted to finish up by showing our entire product portfolio and mention that, or say that what I said before, that some clients use us as an end-to-end, and others use parts of it. And the consumer never see or realize that Arvato is the back end. And this is also the case for the mobility clearing product that we are talking about today. And I actually wanted us to finish off here and ask Gina if there are some questions for us, or if someone would like to ask a question, please use the chat.
Exactly. Are there any questions so far? So I think you will give us really a deep insight, and perhaps you can just I think the question everybody of us currently have is in regards of sharing development. So there's so many push and stops, and depending on Corona. So could you even give us a forecast what you think how it will go on with the sharing economy?
Yeah, thanks, Gina, for that very easy question. I don't know, but I mean, some say, or first of all, we're not allowed to move about as much anymore, even if it eases up again. And there are voices saying, yeah, we don't travel with buses or trains so much anymore, so this will be a boost for subscription or for the car sharing economy. and others say that we will not stay home at all, so or stay home for a longer time, depending on what's happening in the second step here. I actually don't know, but we have the now I don't find the words, the flexibility with a car subscription or a car sharing. You just use it when you have to use it is basically one thing that is a good thing when things like Corona or other things comes along, I think.
Another question, what other options are there for gold, silver, and the Olympic colors you mentioned, Daniel? I think it's more a topic for Thomas. Can I define even the categories, or do you give us automatically recommendations? Is there any risk score card? Is there any info what we can work with, or do you give us the recommendations automatically?
Basically, both is possible. I mean, the risk classes in the background Daniel has mentioned, it's configurable. So you can configure different risk class groups up to, I think, a total of 150, I think you said, risk classes. And the risk classes, they can be defined completely individually. Yeah. Of course, we also can help, with analyzing, the data that we have to define these risk classes and support in that. But generally speaking, these can be configured, and it's not like a standardized set of risk classes that we just give out.
Thank you. And just another question. So hopefully even the audience will send me another question, but this one is otherwise my last one in regards of Corona. Do you remark any fraud effect, any increase, decrease? So is there any effect you remark? It could be even relevant for the subscription, or what do you think?
There's definitely a Corona impact that we currently see, especially in e-commerce. I mean, this is of course then also one of the fields, I think where impacts show the quickest, just because of the fact that, of course, that all the measures that we have during Corona times actually make it much easier for people to commit a fraud. And in e-commerce, that begins with the fact that you don't have to sign off when receiving your parcel anymore. So usually the DHL guy just knocks on your door basically, or just drops the parcel on your doorstep, and in the end, there's no proof that you've actually received the product. So definitely we see an uprise here, especially in the fraud phenomenon called friendly fraud, where people actually say, I've never received it, I've never ordered this, and request a refund on their orders. But in general, I think we are still at the beginning. So within the next coming of month, I think we will see more and more of the impacts, and also because then the more long-reaching aspects of it will also kick in. People losing jobs and so on, and this, the economic factors that are behind it will also definitely leave a mark in the fraud statistics. So we are really with great interest looking into these developments, and also are quite closely monitoring the KPIs that we get, of course, because we want to support our customers with that.
Yeah, thank you. So I didn't get any more question. Hope this was clear. Thank you for giving us that deep dive inside in the processes and even in our back-end systems. As you can see, the contact details are up front, so don't hesitate to contact us if you have any more question, or if you'd like to discuss a special case with our sales guys. Sören and Thomas will be available for you direct or per mail, or even via LinkedIn. Just contact us, and I'm happy to have you here in the call, and hopefully you will hear or listen us even the next time. So we are preparing the next webinar. Oh, just give me a second. There is one question I'd like to manage as well. Are there any statistic data available about default rates on average in car subscription business so far? So Thomas, seems to be a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is really difficult to get, just because, you know, also the default rates definitely depend on what is done to you know, limit the default. So on the risk management side, I mean, you can make really strict rules on you know, on acceptance rates. You know, who am I actually letting into my offering, to keep the default rate really low. But then you might also even cut back on the revenue. So it really always depends on the balance between the two. So an average value is really difficult to tell. Really, it's always you always have to look at the provider level, and then to see, okay, what sort of customer portfolio is entering, and then adjusting your risk settings to balance this out. And it can differ. I mean, in e-commerce, we see quite some different rates there that can still be okay, but varying between, I don't know, 1% up to 3%. Everything in this range can be normal and can still be profitable for the business. It's really depending on the merchant or the company itself, on the business case.
Thank you, Thomas. And oh yeah, Bernard Riner was he asked this question. Thank you. Annabelle Hense is asking, what is your personal opinion on the future development of this industry? Which aspects will become more and more important even without Corona?
Who wants to take the question?
Sören, could you give us your personal opinion about the future development of the industry and which aspect will become more and more important?
Yeah, I will try. I think that a lot of things will happen here. Now, what we see in car sharing is in cities where the population are very dense, and if we go in car subscription, this is an offer that can basically work all over the countryside, even in remote places like Sweden, outside Stockholm, and I think that the car or the mobility will be a place where a lot of transactions occur with connectivity. We will, I think, we will shop, and we will basically equip our cars in different things. And I think scalability, as I talked about before, will be key. I mean, even if you have a country like Germany, where you have a lot of population, all of us wants to do this on a European scale, and you need to have scalability in what you do. So, and that's basically what I think is the most important part.
And in regards of internationality, the option of payment options are that you offer the right payment option even for a European basis.
Yeah, the correct, also the local payments methods and the way the consumers are used to pay or wants to pay are key here as well. For us, we see that in all other markets, and I think that will be more and more important even within the subscription or the car sharing. Today, we also see a lot of the most of them pay per use or credit cards, and I think their monthly billing will be a bigger choice, just in order to gather your mobility for a month, but also in order to be able to promote your product or tell about new things that happened and keep the customer on board.
Yeah, thank you. Even thank you from Annabelle, who is asking for an answer from your side. So, is there any question left? Because I didn't get any more. Is there anybody typing? Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. Guys, for your speaker for giving this demo, and even to the audience, thank you for being part of. Hopefully we will welcome you in the next webinar. It will be even about hopefully car subscription or the parking segment. This is currently topics we like to talk about, but even if you have any more interest in, just give us a hand and we will prepare something. Thank you so much for being part of.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.